What is up, guys? It's your boy GRC. I'm live every day with my co-host Sam Stolt, 11 a.m. Eastern, crypto in the morning, producer Bullish Ox. We're every single day. I'm like good for 2 or 3 a day without even really thinking about it nowadays. Sam, I remember Sam back in the day used to say, I'll do 10 videos like it's nothing. I said, he's a psychopath. I'm like, I'm getting there. You know what I mean? So I'm enjoying the process, guys, but let's get right to it. Okay, you know Sam Stolt. He is the financial advisor of the channel. I make up all these rules in my imaginary world, so we just all listen to me. I don't know the exact rules for everything, but Sam has an MBA, a CPA. He worked in banking. He's been investing for decades. That's why we defer to him on some things. And so I just wanted to say that because right now we're having a lot of FUD about a lot of different projects in this ecosystem, and people want me to not cover them. And I'm like, okay, how much money you want to give me to not cover it? Give me 100 grand and I won't cover it. If it's really that important to you. Or are you just opening your mouth to hear yourself speak? You know, like me and Sam are really trying to get something done, and everything that comes in my way, I'm just like, thanks, I know you're an idiot now. Because anyone with a clear brain would know me and Sam and Bullish are on a mission to make this better for everyone. And I think Wait might be on the same mission, but hold my phone. Don't pull a dodeca on me, Wait. I'm just kidding, guys. Everyone chill. Everyone chill. Everyone chill. We're going to have him on right now, guys. Let's transition Sam on and Coast same time. Let's hit it.
There he is. Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
Hey, what's up, guys? Nice to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you on. Appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat with us about what is happening with the Fiat on-ramp, which we're going to be getting into in a second, as well as Wait. But I think we should probably start with you and maybe your background just to give people context of like how you got into this ecosystem or how you got into crypto. If you want to give us a couple minutes preview of like who you are and how you transitioned into crypto and stuff, that would be fantastic.
And just remember, guys, new people in the chat, just for you, I don't know how much you're streaming, but there's new guys in here that really want to learn about what you're talking about, and they have probably very little exposure. So let's try to start there and move forward. But yes, obviously, everything Sam said is exactly perfect.
Yeah, sure. So this is Stoic. So if you come across our Telegram chat, you'll find me doing support under the Stoic moniker. I got into crypto in 2012, mining Bitcoin on a Toshiba laptop. Wasn't very successful on it because I didn't have a very good GPU. But that was, something that I did for a little while. Got back into crypto in 2015, bought some Bitcoin at about 230, I think. Sold it around about the same time. And then really only re-examined it because I was working in corporate finance at the time. So I was just a little bit busy working in capital markets and public disclosures for public companies as a consultant. And then I got back into crypto when, I started Ethereum mining in 2017. At the same time, I was watching Richard Heart videos. So I've been around watching Richard and watching the ecosystem since then. Swapped.
Did some of Richard's work maybe inspire you to like punch a little harder, or was it more just like passerby, like knowledge? Like, were you impressed by what he did, or did you buy in a lot to the product at the time that you heard it?
Actually, like the first few times I was watching Richard, I had like a counter perspective because I was in Ethereum at the time, right? So like all during 2017, I was sitting there going like, well, hang on, I'm mining Ethereum and I see the use case and Richard's really anti-Ethereum. So for the first 6 months, I had like a little bit of a relationship with Richard that was like, we were on the two opposing sides. I wasn't like public with it or anything, but that first 6 months was interesting. But at the same time, like I took his advice and I got on my 2x leverage trading on BitMEX, and then got obliterated on the what was it, December 9th or whatever it was when they.
Thank you, God, for not allowing me to do these things.
Yeah. But like I lost 70, 80 grand on that scam wick, and then and it's the best lesson I ever learned. Right? Like,
did the desk that you had at the time survive?
Yeah, they were fine.
The
It
absolute
was
smashing. I guarantee, Sam, have you put the lay on a few deaths in your day for stuff like that? That, man, it's hard to lose money in leverage, man. It can really put a man down. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad this was a long, you know how crypto goes. It's quick to move forward, but continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good, man. You learn expensive lessons along the way, and that was one of mine. And I lost 80K on that candle, but I probably only put 8 in, right? And then rode it all the way up using his 2x strategy. So the whole way up to that point at the end of 2017, I was like, hey, Richard Heart kind of knows his stuff. Bitcoin's going really well. And then we all sort of had a tough 6 months.
6 months in hindsight, not so
but we
bad.
came out of it, right? Like I was super bullish on the computational fluid dynamics token that he was working on. And now having done some blockchain dev, I see how grossly difficult that would be. Like, my goodness.
Now, are you a developer?
I'm a product designer. I don't actually punch the code, but I'm similar in scope.
Could you read an average contract and work your way through it if you were on your own time?
Yes.
So I might have some more questions for you down the line, but let's keep going.
Yeah, sure. So I play a similar role in our dev team to what Richard plays in his, right? A little bit of vision, a little bit of product design, a QR or a QC on the code, and product testing and unit testing. That's really my role.
And so you were following a strategy that you had heard Richard talk about, and you go from 8,000 to 80,000 and then back to zero. And is that what kind of helped you, it sounds like you've changed your mind, right? In that first period of time, you have one point of view, you see this dude on the internet, he's talking shit about your point of view, and you're like, this dude's, seems like he's an intelligent dude, but some of these things I completely disagree with. You start following that strategy, you make 10 grand or 10x, and then you lose it all. At what point did you kind of like transition to being like, maybe there's something to this fella?
So there was something to him when he did that first Roger Ver interview, right? I was looking at Roger Ver content and came across Richard as a result of it. Just happened to pop up in my feed on YouTube one day. And I was already I'd already bought the equipment to do the Ethereum mining. So I was pot committed with that capital already. And then I started putting additional capital towards Richard's ideas and his concepts. I think it was probably largely because I wanted to get exposure to all of the forks that were happening or planned to happen, right? Like Roger was talking about Bitcoin Cash. I wanted exposure to that. That effectively gave you like a 10 or 11% dividend, depending on when you sold it as a Bitcoin holder. So I originally started buying Bitcoin on Richard's advice, again, after I'd been a holder previously, for exposure to those hard forks.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. It's very interesting because this purchasing the BTC would be like, if somebody was in BTC right now and there's, 5%, you're going to get from this ETHW, or maybe 30% from ETHW, or maybe zero. We don't know what the numbers are going to play out to be, but hey, why don't you get rid of BTC for this short period of time and get over here? Then you can get a free copy. You can take your free copy and go back to BTC. What did you get into Hex right from the start because I'm assuming you were following along at that point?
Yep. Sold all my ETH and Bitcoin for the adoption amplifier. Got out of everything else except Hex. Only had exposure to Hex for best part of a year and a half, 2 years.
The fact that this information was available back then makes me sick, makes me want to die, makes me want to freak out and jump through the window. Yes, I know there's opportunities all the time, guys. I'm kind of making a joke, obviously. But I was there, and I actually had the insight enough at the time to spend top dollar for a fucking paid course. And they were just damn sure Richard Heart was a scam artist, man.
Hey, you want to feel better? I bought the Tone Bayes indicator.
Yes, thank you. I don't know what that is, but I'm happy. What would you do?
It was originally developed by Tom DeMark, and I don't know if you've ever watched any Tone Bayes content, but he's constantly talking about these nines. Yeah. Just find that green 2 trading above a green 1, and you're all good, right? And then we hit a 9. Oh yeah, you change direction on a 9. Like, go the fuck away, man.
That's some TA fucking garbage. Hey, quick for all your fans out there, what do you think about TA as it comes from making your price predictions as far as drawing candles, short-term time frames, one minute, 10-minute, 1 hour indicators. Am I right, and Sam right, to think that that is literally just all fluff?
Yes, it is.
Other than just like to see the bigger picture and over time?
You could do the same thing by just having good LP positions on Uniswap V3, right? And you could earn fees in the interim, right? Trading's too difficult. You might as well just have those fees and be exposed to both assets for a decent period of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. That's great. Okay. This has been fascinating so far. So you like what Richard Heart's doing. You get into Hex, assuming you probably made a bunch of money. What brought about the idea of Wait?
So I've spoken about this on stream before, but basically, like the way to make money with Hex originally, in my opinion, was to understand the launch mechanics of the token, right? So if you really understood the movement of the adoption amplifier, you could allocate capital on the days that would give you the biggest advantage. So for reference, the most capital I ever put into the adoption amplifier was January 5th. And I know people still talk about January 3rd as being the low, but on January 5th in the AA, you actually got a better price than you ever got buying spot.
What day was that? Do you remember?
It's January 5th, 2020.
Yeah, do you remember the day on the Hex calendar? Like,
would have been about day 35, I think.
Yeah.
37, something like that.
There's like day 19 guys that say like the absolute low, and then there's the guys that say that about the anyway, those specifics are all in the past, and I didn't get any gains from any of them. So let's just whisper that away.
You're good. So what I mean by that is, like, if you understand the launch mechanics, then you can allocate capital in such a way that you get an outsized gain. So as soon as I figured out that, hey, the way to really gain the launch of PulseChain and then later Pulse X was you've got to pull capital together. You've got to get the maximum bonus. And you can either do this on chain, which I frankly didn't have the technical know-how to do a year ago, because I hadn't hired the devs that I have now. So what I did was just did it in the real world and raised capital from like 60, 70 people and put it all in. And we are a top 20 sacrifice with our pool. But that's how you really got the outsized benefit. So we did that to really like ramp up our multiplier. But then you were talking, Sam, about why we created Wait, right? So this is a bit of context. I've had people come to me out of that investment group who have said, hey, like, I need to get out. I thought this was going to be like a last Christmas thing. I've over leveraged myself. I need something else. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to cash some of those people out, right? Even above what they originally put in, just sort of the right thing to do because I got them all involved in it. But we realized in doing this that like there's dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people who are in the same situation, but they weren't in a pool and they over leveraged themselves and they shouldn't have. And so Wait was originally just like hey, those people who are massively over leveraged now can cash out some gains. There'll be some liquidity. Someone will add it. Maybe it gives them a couple thousand bucks that really makes a difference to them.
I thought the
everybody else
method was genius. I didn't know if it would all work because I don't know enough about it. But at the time I said, oh, wow, look, I can maybe earn 500, 600. You know, I'm always talking about earning another DCA for the newer users with some of these free airdrops. And I mean, you did it in a way where I thought I was going to get all my PulseChain stuff already. Richard kind of alluded to the fact that we would be done much sooner than now.
Yep.
So a lot of people lost a lot of that funds where I know there's no written document saying the future time matters, but Richard says, we don't have to talk about all that stuff. Software, but you created that premium to have some USD value for the people that are paying attention. And I wanted to mention one more darn thing about Wait. I want to talk about the tokenomics too, to a degree, because I would like to know if there's any cool things that I'm missing when it comes to the tokenomics and the circulating supply and stuff, because you seem like a smart guy. So I'm assuming maybe you knew all this stuff.
Could you give, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to listen or watch this who don't have any, like we talked about on the show. I covered your white paper a while back, but there's going to be a lot of people who just don't know what Wait is, or how it's distributed or anything like that. Can you talk about that a little bit to give people context for what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So it's pretty simple. You're able to free claim WAIT if you were a sacrificer on either Ethereum or on BSC for PulseChain, Pulse X, or 6 other projects that are attached to it, liquid loans, Mintra, etc. I'm not going to name them all, but that's the general gist. And we built in a system where every hour that you wait, you receive an additional wait token if you decide to mint it. So this timer started at the end of each sacrifice date. So let's say you were a sacrificer for PulseChain and you sacrificed from one address. Well, we launched on July 5th. So basically for an entire year, you had been earning wait without knowing it. And every hour you accrued another one. And you are able to mint it anytime you want. You can mint it today. You can mint it any time up until PulseChain launches. And the only caveat being that if you wait too long, then PulseChain launches and you lose your ability to mint any wait at all. So we've coined this phrase, you know, you're really just playing chicken with Richard, right? You're playing chicken with a billionaire. How long can you wait? And how long do you think it's reasonable to wait such that you're able to incur some risk, but the longer you incur that risk for, the more that you actually benefit financially. So that's the game theory.
What do you see? Because I think Richard has mentioned before that he is going to tell people when the system state copy is going to happen. I remember, I don't know if I remember correctly, but I remember him mentioning this, 6, 7, 8 months ago. I don't know if that still holds true to today, but do you hold a similar belief that you think that there's probably going to be a heads up of at least several weeks before things launch?
Yeah, I think there probably will be, because you will want people, especially for validators, right? Like validators are going to need to change over their infrastructure so that they can support validation when the chain goes live, and maybe even just before. So it's very likely that those people will know about it and release that information to others. The question will be like, who believes it, right? Like, oh, it's launching this week. Well, we've heard that before. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who are skeptical right up until the day where it's actually live.
But Richard is smart to not. I mean, he tells people like it. You know, he will not put a date on it. We all know Richard well enough now that if he put a date on something, like, and he missed out on that, he's always said this is going to take forever. We don't know what's going to happen. But the truth is, crypto changes. Like, what about this whole ETH merge? Like, this wasn't happening, right? Like, did we know this was going to happen today when Richard launches? No, he's just buying time. I think if he was in a room with us 3 guys, the conversation would be a lot different about why things are a certain way, because he would just explain it. Like, I think there's time restraints on this stuff, plus bear market stuff, plus marketing stuff, plus everything. And I think it's just important. Like, it's a lot of trust involved in it, in my opinion. Like, I just hate how everything's trustless. It's like trustless.
No, you're good. So, hypothetically, because we had chatted about before this, so I'm going to try to ask this question in a way that is you're able to answer. But in your white paper, I read through, and you kind of, if you read through the lines, like you've read some of these things before, there's a little bit of almost playfulness in terms of insinuating or maybe allowing people to insinuate themselves, even though it's not directly in any of the language, that there's a possibility for development of something in the future. Now, I know you can't really talk about that, but from a hypothetical standpoint, if somebody else wanted to build something that were to help the ecosystem of Wait, can you share some ideas of some things that somebody, like, if I was like, hey, I want to build something because I think this is a dope ass idea, and I would like to, create more for this community around Wait. Do you have any ideas around that, or would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really thought about that, so you might just give me a second. I suppose you could do something with the people who claim. You could, I mean, we've already taken a subset of all of the sacrifices. You could take an additional subset and use them as a group of people that would be suitable for some sort of future product. You could decide, if you were like a merchant, right? You could decide to accept Wait as a payment method. Or if you were, selling tickets to an event, you could say to people, all right, well, if you hold a certain amount of Wait in your wallet we'll give you a 25% discount on your ticket to the event, right? Like there's all sorts of use cases that would be potential for really any asset in crypto. It doesn't necessarily have to be specific to Wait, but those are some ideas that someone else could utilize if they want.
Interesting. The bulk of what we wanted to, I think, get into. Thank you for going over to the details on Wait. I'm still waiting personally.
Is there any cool tokenomics in there that we can get excited about for maybe some cool price appreciation? And I don't mean the physical price, but maybe some of the token distribution. I want to word it the proper way, but you know what I mean? Is there some tokenomics there that are cool that maybe some people don't know about?
We deliberately built in a function to allow you to claim from multiple sacrifices all at once or separately. And I was actually surprised by how many people use this function. We were expecting everybody to just be like, all right, I'm going to mint all my Wait at once. But in reality, about 30% of people have chosen to what's called Wait claim average. So they'll claim only from Pulse X to start and then see how it does. And then, leave a couple of other sacrifices for longer. There's also some interesting stuff right now around the length of time that's happened since a couple of the sacrifices have ended. So like if you take Fiat or Genie and it's getting close to this on Mintra, there's actually been more time passed since Wait launched than going back to their sacrifice. So you're actually in a situation now where the inflation in Wait is far above what it would have been at that launch point. So as opposed to like PulseChain, where you're not going to get to a period of time where it's the amount of time has passed after the sacrifice launched and for another year, right? Whereas some of those we launched a month after Genie launch, but then it's been another 2 months since then. So the inflation for those people is like really ratcheting up. So that's kind of interesting for the guys who were involved in the later sacrifices.
Is there going to be staking potential with Wait in the future? Like however you see is the most appropriate way to answer that.
We can't provide forward-looking statements on development on Wait. I mean, it's an immutable contract. We've said very specifically that there is an admin key in the contract and it will be used for one purpose, to turn off minting. That's all I can say about the development of Wait as a product. So the only other thing I can say is that we have built a sort of V2 dApp, or actually it's more of like a V1C dApp that we're working on right now, which has more wallet integration. So hopefully works with like Trust Wallet and Staker app, or Gnosis Wallet actually through for Staker app users. So everything we do in development stuff there, it's not going to change the smart contract, but everything we're doing in any of our products is really just to get more eligibility to people, provide more utility to people, make sure that more people can claim it, because we want more people to have it than not.
Yes, because that would be a valuable thing to have more.
And do you know the circulating supply off the top of your head, like roughly at the moment? I know it's capped once everyone's done.
It's about 90 million today. We streamed yesterday, or I went on cryptocurrencies. It was only about 83. So we had 7 million new claimers last 24 hours.
And the price is also appreciated, I think. I thought I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, it was. Okay, I can tell you right now, in the last month, how about we go to the monthly? We are just on the monthly, guys. Geez, it really did go up a lot. So hold on one sec. I'm sorry.
It's up about 88%.
Over the last week, we've had, we've gone from levels of half a penny to 20 cents at the top. And now we're back down at 11 cents.
2 cents, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then we're back down at 1 cent, and at the top we were at 2 cents. So those are huge jumps. And I'm assuming that do you have any idea what the liquidity is like in these assets?
It's changing pretty dramatically. Like I think the standard is around 30 or 40K, but there was a guy maybe a week ago who added like 100K in liquidity and then bought a bunch and then removed it. So it's an interesting little use case he had. A lot of people thought it was us, and we were like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, man, we can't take credit for that. I don't know what that guy's doing."
That's fascinating. Can you touch on that again? Because that's a very interesting strategy. The first time I've actually heard about it. adding LP before utilizing, before utilizing your own LP to build a position?
Yeah, it was interesting. He added, maybe it was just so that he wouldn't have to pay the fees to the other LPs. I'm not sure, but like he added about 100K. It was close to two-sided liquidity, so he wasn't speculating on price with it really. But he added it, and then he traded a bunch and bought like 4.5 or 5 million weight, and then he withdrew the liquidity again. And everyone sort of went on Telegram, was like, "Hey, that's a great idea! Like hilarious! Like way to try and pump the price, guys." And we're like, "Hey, we didn't even think of that. Like that's a good one."
But even from a trading, like if hypothetically somebody from like a tool that you could utilize to build positions into the future, that framework, what you just described, I think could be utilized, right? If I want to build a position in something that doesn't have a lot of liquidity and I already have a position in there, I could keep,
Don't say it all at once. Put some word salad in there, Sam. You got to give them a little word salad. So only the smart ones hear you. Okay. Come on. I know what you're saying, Sam. Just continue, but just don't give them too much.
You could add the liquidity on there based upon your knowledge that you are going to be purchasing. So maybe it's not in the center, maybe it's off to the side, which would give you the, you're not going to lose your position effectively, or you gain more of the fees throughout the process. Yeah. So I think this is a fascinating thing, because if you think about the fee to trade something, right, you got Uniswap and you have Ethereum, right? And one way to reduce those fees, if you don't have any knowledge that the price is going to go up or down to try to use a range order to get into it, would be a hybrid approach of doing kind of like a range, but with like purchasing at the same time, so you can actually reduce the overall cost on there. And I think that's fascinating. But enough about that, Stoic. Let's dive into Fiat on-ramp.
In the last 15 minutes, guys, we got 15 minutes for Fiat on-ramp plus the add-on 15 minutes for questions, which will probably cross into both, guys. I have all your questions starred. And the only reason I mentioned that about providing liquidity, because when I came into the HEX ecosystem and started talking about providing liquidity, everyone that assumed their smartness over me told me that I should stop learning about it and I should start staking HEX. And that's when I kind of decided, like, I need to think about these things a little more freely. It's not the same for everyone. So the reason I say LP and stuff like that, like nobody knows, because guess what? Nobody's doing it. There's probably like 10 guys that are doing it on Wait. That's why it's an opportunity. I know LP is not new, but you can provide LP between two stable coins all you want, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, and LP between stable coins on V3 isn't super profitable anymore. I mean, it was much, much better when you were at that 0.3 level on V2, but now with 0.05 and the amount of competition for that volume and a bear market, like the yields are just terrible. So it's just not worth it.
I like this guy.
Let's
talk about the project.
Yes.
You want to start it off, Sam? Just however you would want. I can hear everything you're saying, but I do have to use the bathroom. But I'm listening intently.
No, I'm curious to hear about this, because I haven't actually heard from you about this. And GRC was mentioning, or Bullish was mentioning this morning, but a new Fiat on-ramp for Pulse, if I'm understanding correctly. Do you want to start with like your, the beginning steps with this, and then kind of work into this project?
Sure. We've been working on it for 6 to 9 months. We took a break from it actually when we were just doing paperwork to work on Wait. We were sort of in this in-between phase with regulators, licensing, and lawyers, where there wasn't a lot of actually technology work we could do. So that was when we pivoted and got our dev resources to do Wait, but we were still doing all the paperwork stuff in the background for the Coast stablecoin. Really, the design intention with this is that it is very challenging for the average user, or even for a new user, to utilize an on-ramp and then like a centralized exchange, then get their own hosted wallet, and then try and use a bridge to get over to PulseChain. It's just too many steps, and you can see this in like the number of friction points, and this happens in every sort of industry, right? So like, think about the on-ramp to PulseChain, or getting economic energy onto PulseChain, as similar to like a shopping cart on an e-commerce website, right? Every additional field you put in, you lose people. Every additional color of that shirt, you lose people. Every different form of payment you add to the shopping cart, you lose people. That drop off sometimes can be, 2/3 of people, where if it was just one option, you would have gotten them 100% of them over to check out. So every single friction point there is that prevents people getting economic energy onto PulseChain is another person that's lost that might never come back. And so the design intention of the Coast stablecoin sort of platform that we're working on is, how do I get money from my bank account in as few steps as possible into my wallet on MetaMask or a competitor that's activated and on PulseChain, so I can do something with it, right? And there's just not that many options that are really easy to do this, especially when you consider that going on-ramp is relatively easy if you want to pay fees to someone. But off-ramp is actually even more difficult, right? There are fewer ways to off-ramp crypto than there are to on-ramp by a long way. And so the best on-ramp that we've found is in the States is probably Trust Token. I don't know if anyone here has used this, but like buying TUSD, because you're sending a wire to Trust Token to Prime Trust.
Oh yeah, Trust Token. I just did this. It's awesome. I love it.
So they're not a custodian, right? So the big difference between using a CEX, a centralized exchange, or a hosted wallet to do this, and trying to do it through Trust Token, or what Coast will be, is that we're not going to custody your crypto for you. It's yours, right? There's a transaction that you make from your bank account to the group's bank account, and it's allocated to you in a ledger, and then the system just mints the stablecoin for you. It's as close to minting your own stablecoin with your own money as you can possibly get. So we don't hold your fiat, we don't hold your crypto. You are in control of it at all times.
And reverse. And talk about the reverse too, because the reverse is awesome. Like you mentioned, can be challenging to get money out of crypto, or there's not necessarily a lot of ways. Not that you'd want to do that all the time, but with Trust Token, you basically follow that in reverse. You take this fully 100% backed, then they have it audited. Not that you have to trust the auditor, right? But it's verifiable that they have this much funds that are backed up against all the stable coins, and you just take your stable coins, you send it to this address, and then they will wire that out back to you in your personal account or your business account. Freaking awesome. But this is down on a tangent on Trust Token. I like Trust Token, but you saw this as the a viable option to utilize. I'm assuming you were getting at.
Yeah, it's the best option in terms of design intention, right? We want people to have sovereignty over their own assets. We don't want to be a centralized counterparty that holds on to it, right? So even the group bank account that the stablecoin is minted against, it's not Coast's asset, right? Like we don't even have like signing authority on the funds. So we're an administrator only. So all of the funds are allocated to the users in the bank account.
So talk about what. So I don't know what Coast. So Coast is going to be the entity, the thing that is going to allow people to buy Pulse, and when they swipe a credit card, debit card, link up their bank account, ACH, whatever the thing is, that goes to the centralized guardianship account that Coast doesn't. There's an administrator on it, but you're not controlling it as in the funds piece of it. Is it? Please highlight me more on what's going on here.
Correct. So let's use a walkthrough with an example of an example user, right? Let's say someone has $1,000 that they want to put on PulseChain. They can come to the Coast website. They can create a user account and complete KYC. One of the interesting things about the way we've built this too, with the banks that we're interviewing and the KYC company that's going to do these checks, is we're not going to require selfies. At no point are you going to have to write down on a piece of paper the date or hold up a newspaper next to your head and take a photo and send it to us, right? Further to that, we don't actually custody any of those assets. So like when you do a KYC check with the Coast website, we're not holding on to a photo of your driver's license or your social security number or anything. It actually just gets sent via API to the checking company. they check it and return us an approval or a denial on your KYC. So really all they're looking for is to know that your name matches up with a known address or something that's related to you billing wise, right? Like usually your phone number and your billing address and your name. They're going to try and match those three things just to make sure that you're not doing something fraudulent.
Is there, so there are two questions here. So there is KYC, but there's no storage of that KYC with Coast. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not ever going to be possible that like one of our databases gets hacked and all of our user information gets leaked. It just can't happen.
Now I understand the incentive to create a better user experience. And if you have to come through using Coast and every single time you need KYC, I could understand how you would, as a person who wants to create less friction for the user, would want to store some of that information to make sure that they are, the KYC'd, right? And so to speak, so they don't have to KYC every single time they come. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, they definitely don't need the KYC every time. Sorry if I misspoke there, but
no, that was just me. I'm trying to understand. Yep.
No. So their KYC information is sent to the checker. The checking company does the check and returns us a validation. So they'll tell us either they're approved, they're denied, or they need to provide some more documentation to become approved. And then they go into like an internal workflow that we use to get them to a point where they are approved. As soon as they've done KYC, none of their documents are stored by us, so we can't have a user leaks, your physical address gets sent to anybody or put on the dark web or whatever. But now that you've been KYC'd and you're approved, you can go and do transactions as long as you link up probably a MetaMask or an Ethereum address through the DApp, and then as long as you have a bank account that works, you can run transactions just like on Trust Token and have it sent to your Ethereum address. The only question there in terms of like friction points, like you're saying, Sam, is going to be dependent on the payment method you choose to use. Like if you use an ACH on a Tuesday, you'll probably have your money within a couple of days. If you send a wire on a Tuesday, you'll probably have money the same day. But if you go to your bank and you send a wire at 3:35 on a Friday afternoon, you're probably not going to get it till Monday, right? So there's just some real world TradFi considerations that we just have to deal with, unfortunately, that mean that the payment method you choose will dictate the friction.
So you're using Trust Token framework because I like their model, right? It's been successful, I think, from 2018-ish or something, with over $1 billion of stablecoins. So there's a lot of people that trust them. Not that, there's a lot more users there that helps create validity to it. Using that as a little bit of a framework to create this. Is that accurate? Okay. And then
we're trying to replicate a lot of what they do, being non-custodial, right? Like I know a lot of people don't realize this, but the main reason that there aren't more places to buy HEX is because of custody. The big custodians that provide custody of digital assets until very recently didn't support HEX. So for example, Fireblocks, which is a company based out of Israel, most companies that provide custody services like a hosted wallet are just a Fireblocks reseller. And so because no one at Fireblocks had said that we'll support HEX, none of the resellers of Fireblocks would support HEX either. And that only changed this year when we went to Fireblocks and asked them specifically to host or to provide services for HEX. And the big thing that would get more people to be able to buy PulseChain, Pulse X, and HEX would be if we all got together and petitioned Fireblocks to support PulseChain. It would cost somewhere between 400 and 500K to get them to support it. But we could probably crowdfund it, and that way it would give them economic incentive to actually support it, because it wouldn't be that difficult. It's an EVM-based chain. But that's why more people can't buy HEX in more simple places.
Interesting tidbit of information. I like that. And I didn't know any of
that.
that.
We got a couple of minutes before you got one more question before we go to the questions. Real quick, Ryan Lopez with the $50 super chat way earlier in the show. Thank you very much. He said he's very bullish on Wait, and that's what he said in the comments. So there you go, Ryan Lopez. I'm pretty sure he's a retired Hex King. He's bullish on Wait. All right, things are moving. So, and everyone in the chat, thanks for being in here. Please retweet the tweet that I just posted below. Please like all the channels. There is the Crypto in the Morning channel. I will actually do all that at the end. So let's just get back into Sam's last question, guys, and I'll make sure I show all of that stuff properly at the end. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, guys, every day at 11 a.m. Eastern. Boom, boom, boom.
Stoic. So to kind of like wrap up these questions here before we get into the questions from people, can you go through a entire example? Like, Sam, hey, I'm here. I have my credit card, and then I want to purchase Pulse. What is the sequence of events that's going to walk somebody through this to give people a framework of like, hey, I do this, I do this, I do this as I walk through this process? Because it's been awesome learning about it, but I think maybe a little heady for some people to grasp like how this works, and a lot of people don't understand what trust token is. Like you and I do, but then we're talking outside of what other people understand.
So number one, you create a user account on a website just like you would with any other email address and password. Number two, you would go through a KYC check where you would provide, probably if you're an American user, your social security number and a physical address and a phone number to have the KYC checking company approve you. Once approved, you would link a Web3 wallet to the DApp. That would probably be MetaMask or some sort of equivalent. You would add, in step 4, you would add bank account information, or you would be presented with wiring instructions to be able to send a wire to Coast, to the shared bank account. Step 5, the bank account or the payment processor clears the funds into the bank account. Step 6, the API is automatically mints the stablecoin for you and sends it to your Pulse address. So now you have CST on your Pulse address.
CST is the stable coin that people will be able to purchase on Pulse.
Correct. So I just want to be very specific. Like, you will not be able to buy Pulse X, or HEX through the Coast website or the Coast app. We are not a securities broker dealer, and we are not a money transmitter. So you will have to go and then perform some function with your CST. The easiest thing that we could provide, most likely, is we'll just provide a tab of the website, kind of like ethex.com links to Uniswap V2. We'll just provide a trading tab, which will be a link to Pulse X, and it'll be embedded with some sort of iframe. And then that way you'll have your CST, you'll have a little bit of Pulse, and you'll be able to trade for whatever you want within the Pulse X ecosystem.
That's awesome. Thank you for walking through that. I know GRC has some questions that he's going to pull up. This is a super fast one, but the cost, what's the cost involved for something like this?
So right now we've kept it as low as humanly possible. And actually that's a requirement with regulators, right? Because we're trying to use a model that's non-custodial and we're trying not to be a money transmitter, this can't be like a get-rich scheme for Coast. Like, this has to be as close to a loss leader as possible. So we've kept them at 4% as sort of the maximum. There will be functions, though, to help you reduce that cost to as low as 1%. Based on staking of some sort of asset. Probably during testnet, that'll be something like Pulse, because everybody has access to it on testnet. So it'll work similar to the way, I don't know if you guys have used 1inch, but if you use 1inch, there's a fee or a gas fee associated with your trades, but you can reduce that in the form of a gas fee refund in the form of the 1inch token. So let's say you stake 1,000 1inch, you get a 25% rebate on your trading fees. If you stake 10,000, you get a 50% rebate. 100,000, so 10x multipliers to reduce fees by 1%. So we're going to follow a model very similar to that, where if you stake something like Pulse, you'll get a discount from, say, 4% to 3%. You stake a little bit more, 3 to 2, a little bit more, 2 to 1. I think 1 will probably be the hard floor, though. That's just where we'll have to cover costs.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware. I've never used 1inch. I've heard of it, but I've never used it. So that is fascinating. GRC has some questions that people have.
So the first question we can chop through is, what are your plans to get this legal in states like New York? They've mentioned they want it in every state in the United States.
Yeah, so we are in touch with regulators and we're talking to them about what's called a no action letter. These go by different names depending on the specific regulator that you're speaking to. So with the SEC, it's called a no action letter, where you go to them with your business plan and you say, hey, here's what we're going to do. This is why we don't think it's a security. Here is the legal firm that's backing this letter. please give us a determination based on what you say. And typically with the regulator, you'll get feedback, which will be something to the effect of, well, your current format might be a security, but if you tweak these things, it's probably not. So it is actually a collaborative process with regulators. And very few companies do this. And so as one of the few that is going to, we're going to FINRA and we're going to FinCEN, and we're writing letters and we're in touch with those regulators about how to model this such that we're not in the flow of funds. That's the key thing to understand, is that if you're handling other people's money, you're a money transmitter. But in the system that we've designed, we've specifically designed it around not being a money transmitter, where you, Sam, are sending money from your bank account to another bank account that you have interest in, and you are minting your stablecoin for yourself. And on the way back, you're burning your stablecoin, and the system is recognizing it, and the ledger is going to allocate fiat to you as a result. And we are not in the process, right? So it's not Coast bank account, it's all of our bank account if you're in the ledger. So you're minting your own stablecoin, you're burning your own stablecoin, and that's how we're able to do that.
And there's I would assume that you have a third party that would have probably put a bunch of effort into figuring out who would be a trusted third party to be the custodian of this the account.
Yeah, there are a lot of providers who will do what's called a for the benefit of account, which is where you have multiple people have access to the asset, and it's allocated according to a ledger. The key thing with an FBO is that most people won't do this for crypto. So like typically an FBO account is something that you will use for like an estate situation where you have to allocate resources to multiple people as part of the estate, right? And it's usually only fairly small. We're talking about doing an FBO with like thousands of people potentially. So we have to work with banks that have the ability to check in terms of compliance that we are being compliant with them and that our users are being compliant with us, which means there's a very small set of banks who are able to do this. We've mentioned before, Sam, Prime Trust is one of them. Prime Trust actually provides the ability for you to utilize their money transmitter licenses in addition. We don't anticipate having to do that, but groups like that have the competency to be able to check that we're being compliant, and such that if we use their licenses, we're doing it in the right way. Sorry, that's a lot of information.
No, I appreciate the details. This is awesome. GRC has another
So
question.
yeah, the same question kind of for the UK. Is that going to be the similar answer? Like as far as, there's going to be specifics for each jurisdiction. Is that something you're working on though? I mean, for people in the UK as well?
Yeah, look, it's a very similar answer. The only physical location where we have absolutely no clarity right now is Canada, because of the changes that they've recently made to how they're going to treat stablecoins. So they're the only group where we're like absolutely in the dark about what to do. So I would expect if PulseChain comes this year, we might not have an answer from Canadian users, unfortunately, but everybody else, it'll be a similar thing, right? We're not in the flow of funds. We're not handling users' money. Users are minting their own stablecoin. Here's our determination letter from FINRA and FinCEN. We'll take those to the same regulators in each country, or the equivalent regulators, sorry.
Fascinating.
Yep. So I'll get to the next question here, and I'll pick a random one. Okay. What happens if you put in 1K, buy PLS, PLS does a 10X, and then try to sell it via CST?
So we can't sell your PLS for you. You would have to go and sell your PLS for CST on Pulse X.
I think he might mean, what if I have I have PLS, right? I put in $1,000 of PLS and my PLS goes to $10,000. Now I'm like, oh, great. Let me try to buy some CST and exit that way. Is that something? I think that's what he's probably trying to say. That's possible, I would assume, assuming that I set up KYC in advance.
He's trying to say, like, where's the liquidity kind of?
Yeah, the liquidity comes from the on-ramp. We're not going to accept anything else except for US dollars to back the currency, the stable coin. So, we could have done like a bridging thing, right? Where we took $1 million in USDC on Ethereum and then minted $1 million in CST. Ultimately, we're just not going to do that. It complicates things too much. It's much easier for us to just be one-to-one backed against that one FBO bank account. So in the short term, we'll probably have to fund some things with our own capital in order to get enough economic energy in there to reduce slippage and make it such that someone with 10x gains or a 10K can sell. So there'll be a little bit of a float that we'll have to provide that allows people at the first stages to cash out some gains. So a lot of that has to come from us.
Another question.
Another question.
Yes.
Have any of the big combined sacrifice groups claimed their weight yet? And to add on to that question, do you know how many people haven't claimed their weight? Are those numbers available at all? Or is it kind of just only if you can see it all on the blockchain?
Yeah, so we're going to have like a V1C of the DApp available for weight in next week or so. Hopefully we're adding on-chain data like sacrifice data, percentages of addresses that have claimed for each sacrifice. We should even have a midnight bonus calculator on there, which will tell you how much you're supposed to be getting in the midnight bonus based on your shares when you originally minted, or your potential shares if you haven't minted. Someone like you, Sam, that would be applicable for. So all of that's coming in the V1C. We originally planned to have that out Friday, but it's probably going to be delayed a week, I would think.
Friday. Oh, wow.
On that, is there? I think that one thing that, at least in crypto in general, a lot of people like to talk about or speculate about, or just conjecture, is what wallets are doing that are whales or have a larger position in said asset. So in that, is there going to be the capacity to, that would be a very interesting piece of data to have from an analytical standpoint. If you could just filter and be like, okay, top 20% of all sacrificers, these are the addresses of that subset of the total subset of addresses that have sacrificed to these 8 projects. That 10%, have they claimed? What percentage of the top addresses have claimed or have not claimed would be, I think, a very interesting pice of data. I don't know how easy that is.
I like being able to buy a little bit before that data is available too. There's like a little bit of like that we all, if you look at the supply and a lot of things, that's a lot of information people will never figure out, other than like the smart people will eventually look at some of these things if they're legitimate product market fit and the market sees that. That's what we're waiting for, right? That's why these are risk on assets. That's why this is all new stuff, guys. So if you put all of your money into an asset, any of these assets, you're stupid. So you got to make sure you're safe and that you protect yourself no matter what assets you're holding in this world, instead of crying and blaming the only guy that's working and these guys and Corey Costa, who I've been watching for 8 months, do interviews every day while he lives with his grandmother, is 100% transparent and absolutely was enthralled by, you know what I mean? So I think it's just important to remember, don't over leverage yourself, guys. I'm not endorsing this. Yes, I did live the claim for this because I wanted to see it and make sure everyone was safe. But if you take any of what I'm saying as an endorsement, you're an asshole. And you need to start learning harder, because you need this show's about education for the people that really want to learn. That's the people that will listen to this show. But if you're just going to screen record stuff and call me an idiot, I'm going to block you.
It looks like you're reading comments that you probably shouldn't be reading. Fiji
asks, I'm trying to get Corey's follow back with Richard Heart because everyone's fudding him.
Drama. Will there be a DAO from? That's what one of the questions came in. I don't think so, but go ahead.
No, the issue with a DAO is that in the US, it's almost certainly going to be regulated as a business because you're sharing revenue between shareholders. So no, we're not going to be building something like that. However, like the mechanism that we did describe earlier, where you can receive a discount via the staking, that's not sharing revenue, right? So because you're providing a discount on an on-ramp service, it's not a security. Whereas if we were to like pool all of the fees together and then distribute it to stakers in some sort of fashion, that would be a security because you'd be sharing revenue, right? So that's part of the product design, is understanding securities law. So no, we won't be building a DAO.
And that's something that a lot of cryptocurrencies do not pay attention to before they launch their stuff, is the securities laws. And then they get all frizzled up and everyone ends up in federal prison.
Ben asks a question here.
Yeah, so how will the Tide token affect WAIT and CST? Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, the Tide token is a project that we were working on for quite a while, sort of in tandem with We've sort of shelved it because we needed to improve some of the underlying math. But it's a similar product to some of the stuff that's been out there that's like a hex pooling or hex derivative product. However, we sort of back-ended the game theory, interestingly, and put it all at the end of the stakes, which was sort of how we got around some of the difficulty with having multiple tokens. So we had to shelve that in order to do Wait and then work on CST. Ultimately, we basically just figured, look, there's more utility for everybody if we build a stablecoin and a fiat on-ramp. There's already enough things that are doing hex derivative and hex pooling. Until we can make it like a 0 to 1, like world-changing product, we're not going to release it. Like there's not much point in creating something else that has a duplicate feature set and isn't world-changing. So Tide's on the back burner for now.
Thank you for that. There's, I think, 2 more questions we probably have some time for here. UFO to go asks, will a debit or spend card be released for the off-ramp funds? This might be interesting as another entity maybe or something, but you probably have thought about this. Go ahead, Stoic.
There's no plan to do that as of right now. It might be challenging with an FBO account. So I'd have to look into that. But as of right now, no, there's no plan to do that. CZ, this is probably the last question unless GRC has anything after this. JZ Hexing asks, the short version is Coast will provide on and off ramp for PulseChain users via the True USD, which is, if you guys are not aware, go look up Trust Token. I did a couple videos on it. If you want to see, like, it's kind of like a mirror of that or a fork of that, you can kind of think of, in my understanding, whom are currently providing these services for ETH users. This is the question. Coast is a pathway to Pulse for Pulse users. Is that correct? That's almost correct. The only difference being that we're actually issuing our own stablecoin, Coast stablecoin, instead of having it be True USD that's being minted. So think about the equivalent of, in this particular use case, right? Ethereum and PulseChain are equivalent, and True USD and Coast stablecoin, CST, are equivalent.
Yes, perfect. I didn't think TUSD. Okay, Stoic, this has been awesome, super insightful. I love having somebody on where they're so deep into the weeds, and you can really, from my perspective, gain a good understanding of somebody knows what they're talking about, because I ask a lot of questions, and when you start asking your questions to people who are not in the weeds, you realize that conversation ends pretty quickly. So Stoic, you're doing an awesome job.
Yes, exactly. Good. Well said, Sam. I agree with that statement a lot.
Thank you for coming on. We'd love to get you on again. If you, like, as you move through this process of, like, the details of what you're doing, how everything's going, if you have any questions, we're here to help support the ecosystem, and we love people who are putting in the work. And it appears to be something that, like, this is something that I would be using. That's why I'm excited about it. I'm already using Trust Token, so I appreciate you.
And a lot of us got a free airdrop, so that's nice. It's a nice way to get your butt moving when it comes to learning, and I'm seeing that more, guys. I'm going to get at 10,000 subscribers soon on Twitter. I just dropped the link. Follow it below. Thank you so much, OX Coast. And everyone's happy about their Wait token gains. I know you don't want to comment on that too much, but we appreciate you coming on, and appreciate before the stream you actually turned your camera on, which I'm sure you do with people that you're a little bit closer with. And there's many reasons people do that, but I appreciated that because it's nice to look you in the face, and I appreciate all the work you're doing.
You bet. Thank you, boys. Greatly appreciate the opportunity and the time, and excellent questions. It's clear that you want to know some stuff about how this works. It's great.
Awesome. Yes. Hey, look forward to chatting soon. We're gonna wrap this up with some DeFi proof.
Yes, sir. Let me click it. Boom.
Young folks, you dripping on them motherfucker.
Richard Heart. Richard Heart.
Bought my hex from the fucking start. Point one every day we mark. Bought my hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Buy my hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Checking my MetaMask moving. Look at the hex, he is mooning. Looking at wives they be choosing. Peter is why they be losing. PulseChain's out, gonna get me a check. He's gas up and it got me a mess. Remember the times he died collect. Hex I been eating, I'm dying in the best. Getting this back like a year ago. Getting this PulseChain Lango. Swerving the ring like a Lambo. Getting this back like a year ago. Getting this PulseChain Lango. Swerving the ring like a Lambo. Buy my hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Buy my hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Richard Heart.